weak early game. And we heard it from Deficio, Origen should look to pick something that scales. They are not looking to snowball. The times in which they did have a good early game, it was just amazing setting up Soaz for success, while the rest of Origen were just farming away, having a nice time. And if Origen stick to this playstyle of not relying on PowerOfEvil or Peke to get ahead in the early, I think they stand a much better chance against Schalke.
Okay, so the trick then, find neutralizing lanes for those weaker ones on the side of Origen. Try find a winning duo for that top jungle synergy if you're Origen. Rise Bandaway on the blue side from Origen. Big indicator that they don't consider that first pick worthy. The reply is Vladimir. Braum was the last ban, and Nidalee from the previous games. And Rek'Sai as well is the one that'll be missing because of the Azir ban.
So we've also seen the shift from Kindred in this series. We're not seeing any priority on that. The fact that Elise is taken away by Origen does suggest that they don't want Gilius to be on one of his comfort picks, something that has been targeted towards Gilius, as we saw in their game against Splice. And this time, the Rek'Sai is actually available for Origen, so I do think that that will be the likely priority. Make sure Amazing has something where he can have a lot more early game impact. It scales very well because you can go the Cinderhulk, you have that tanky frontline if you need it in the mid to late game, and you can just, again, camp Soaz and set him up for success.
And you can see Soaz on screen, big discussions happening as the camera flicks over to PowerOfEvil. Got to talk around, what do they consider first pick worthy? Now the Braum was in fact banned out by Origen, sorry, by Schalke, Bard and Braum. And it's going to be a Braum first pick.
All right. This actually makes a lot of sense. Finally, Hybrid getting out one of his comfort supports, something that is so strong right now in the meta. We've been seeing it banned in the vast majority of games, and for good reason. He has a lot of positive matchups. He's really good at providing peel for your AD carry, really good at disengaging. Not the best at forcing engages, but if he gets the opportunity, he can go for that flash ultimate play, and the amount of single target crowd control that he provides is just ridiculous. So the fact that he has slipped through, and I think Schalke, don't know how aware they were, but given how dominant they were in game one, they could be saying, we don't care, you can play whatever.
Yeah, you mentioned the how prolific this champion has been, involved in 36 out of 40 games here in the EU LCS. The response from Schalke, what will it be? They've burned a lot of this timer down. Gilius, no Elise available, no Nidalee available. And instead of locking in that jungle champion, is opting into the Karma plus Fizz. So that is somewhat of a flex pick. We have seen it AP middle. Ryu ran it earlier today. And obviously we've seen it mostly in the top lane.
I was a little bit surprised that we haven't seen more Karma mid, to be honest. I felt like that she could be an adequate replacement for Lulu. But obviously she does have her drawbacks in the sense that she provides very little damage, and the utility that she does provide is pretty strong, but it does take a little while before she becomes into that sort of god tier like Lulu used to be. This Fizz pick is actually quite interesting. Steve going to be likely running it up in the top lane. Obviously, you do also have that flexibility, and this seems to be what Schalke are going for right now, because they're basically saying, ooh, we're being sneaky. You have no idea what we're trying to do with these picks. So it does provide Schalke room to grow with their composition.
I certainly hope that's exactly the sound effect that they made.
I imagine that's exactly what they said, like, ooh, sneaky.
On the side of Origen, they've got 5 seconds left on their second rotation. And Rek'Sai is the champion that we were anticipating to get locked in, and it has been for Amazing. His Gragas never really got a chance to do much in the last game. Unfortunately, Schalke ran away with that early and mid game. And Peke going to be playing LUcian. He ran that yesterday. Tough game, 5-4 and 5.
That's positive.
And yes, it was positive. And it was the game that he won against Vitality as well.
Also the game where he got caught out a lot on that AD carry. Playing a little bit over-aggressive, feeling very confident on the LUcian, can result in you trying to set up plays for your team, which ended up backfiring for Peke from time to time, but it does synergize beautifully with the Braum, especially in lane. You have so much extra power. It just stacks so nicely with that concussive blows passive. So a lot of single target damage coming out from OG right now, and this will buy you plenty of time coming into the mid game. So OG right now picking pretty safe, picking pretty smart. It's just going to hinder very heavily on what they go for in mid.
And a lot of versatility, right? Because Braum, LUcian, Rek'Sai can kind of fit into any type of comp, which you can now determine with your solo laners. Somewhat similarly on the side of Schalke, they've got good disengage from the Gragas. fairly good engage with the Fizz, the Sivir. I mean, they can just run straight at you, rush you down. I think Deficio said it best earlier. Starship Troopers, you know, run at you, crush those bugs under your feet, and it allows Fox a counter pick if he does not want to take that AP Fizz.
We could see the Poppy here, great at disengaging against these compositions that love to just run at you, and Soaz has played it in the past, so it would be pretty good at denying a lot of the pressure or the setup that Schalke would be looking for, and especially if they try to force any fights. It's very similar. Well, it is effectively the composition that OG tried to run in the game before, and we saw how well that Poppy worked against it. So wouldn't surprise me if we did see that coming out from Origen.
I got a few seconds left to lock it in, and whoa! Okay, so Soaz lived on an island in that previous game with his Olaf, and now he's decided, I'm going to pick a champion that does even better on an island. He's locked in the Jax.
They were going so well. I mean, PowerOfEvil, he finally picks a safe mid, see? Peke clearly had a quiet chat with him and said, hey, I really think you should play Viktor. He's really good right now. And there's the Viktor. You have this great mid-game power, team fighting composition with the Braum, with the Lucian, with the Viktor, and then you round it out with the Jax. So you have this 1-4 split push composition coming out from Origen. Soaz has been playing very well up in the side lane. And on patch 6.11, his passive now, rather than just dropping off in one go, it now gradually falls off, which is, I would argue, a bit more of a quality of life change rather than a real significant buff to Jax. But something that I am really excited to see Soaz play. Definitely another unique champion that we're seeing here in the top lane, and this is just something that we've been discussing a lot about this week, which is the shift in meta that we are seeing up in the top lane. No more full-on tanks, we're seeing more split pushes, more bruisers.
And of course, in terms of the strengths of Origen from yesterday, it was when Amazing played around Soaz. You've now got a deadly duo. Knock-up, stun, mobility. And we see the lock-in for Schalke. It was a LIssandra as the final pick. I mean, that is a terrifying, terrifying comp to deal with, no matter who you are, and it will be Steve running Fizz in the top lane.
The thing that worries me for OG is, how do they stop Schalke from forcing these fights? You do have good disengage with the Braum, but when you're running this fast, then you can set up so many flank plays with the TP from Fox, the potential flank from Steve. There are just so many options for Schalke to force fights, and they're just gonna scale so well with the Sivir really good in late game team fights. LIssandra also really good in these late game team fights. And I think it's gonna be another situation where Schalke, they're not gonna allow Origen that opportunity to set up a split push start.
Well, if they can deny that opportunity, Schalke's team comp will do great. If, however, they can't stop that split push, or the ability to play the side lanes, maybe that's how Origen get their hands into the game. There's your team compositions for the last game of Week 2 here in the European LCS. Can Origen get themselves a point? Can they get themselves the draw on the day? Or will Schalke take the 2-0, take the 3 points, and walk away with the win or loss this week? We're about to find out as we load up onto the Rift.
So, Origen versus Schalke is definitely one for the week. It's a great game to end it on.
There we go.
But already, we have to go to a very quick break because the excitement and intensity is so much that the players needed to quickly restart. So.
Yes, that they did. It does give us a few more minutes to talk about some of the summoner spell choices. Double teleport on the side of Schalke, so their Fizz and their LIssandra will be able to play the silence. PowerOfEvil, obviously, because he has to deal with the LIssandra mid lane. He's gone with the Flash Cleanse. But luckily for Origen, Rek'Sai will help back up that global that they're missing.
Certainly will, and I actually quite like this from Schalke simply because if it gets to a point where Fizz can no longer 1v1 the Jax, then you can actually just send the LIssandra up there to wave clear, and there's no way that the Jax is going to be able to hard commit onto that LIssandra simply because she has so much disengage. She can root you in place, she can use the Claw of Doom to get out, and she can use the ultimate if she really needs to. So there are plenty of options to deal with this split push.
We'll see who's going to be the answer. Very quick pause, we are into game. Last one here of Week 2. The crowd declaring their allegiance for you-know-who. He who shall not be named.
So, let's start with the top lane. There's Jax versus Fizz matchup. Obviously, Fizz does have the Ignite, so he has a little bit more kill threat. But something that you have to always be very mindful of with Jax is that attack speed passive, where he's going to be constantly he's going to be hitting you faster the more he hits you. which is always something that you have to be very mindful of early on. And the empowered W, where he, the lamp slap, as I like to call it, is also surprisingly strong during the early game. Now, with all the different itemization changes that we've seen, especially to the Hextech path, I wonder if Soaz will still decide to go for the Gunblade. It does just give you a little bit more damage than what it used to, the active. And where he follows that up with, I do know that the old, I forget the name of it, it's a yellow sword that's on fire.
Ginsu's Rage Blade.
That's the Badger. Ginsu's Rage Blade. It has changed a lot and is actually really powerful right now, so perhaps that's the build path that Soaz decides to go for. Something that will keep us on the edge of our toes during the laning phase.
We will find out next time on the episode of LCS Itemization. Lane swap was initiated here by Schalke. Whether it was a prediction or whether it was, you know, a swap that they wanted to initiate, somewhat regardless. And this will give xPeke a little bit of breathing room. So the struggles that Peke and Hybrid had from game 1 of the series may not happen for a little while. Looking at the minimap though, Hybrid and Sprattel are both getting involved here. So not sure Q, Sprattel's going to steal one of those wolves away. Looking at Hybrid, significantly harder for Hybrid, especially when he's just got that Winter's Bite.
So in this setup, Schalke decided to go for the lane swap because they want to try and deny Soaz as much as possible. They want to delay that late game Jax as much as they can, and by putting him into a lane swap, they're going to get that option for them. So you can already see Soaz and Steve both sitting on zero farm, which is exactly where Schalke want it.
Yeah, no surprises there. But there is something both these teams have to figure out. The first dragon is Infernal. And I can't remember which game it was yesterday, but somebody opted into ending the lane swap early to ensure that they were not at risk of losing dragon. Because, for example, Summoner heal. The observers baited me. That zoom in. I thought he was going down.
Man.
But yeah, if memory serves, the secondary phase of the lane swap was to send the ADC and support down bottom earlier than anticipated to lower the risk of losing that dragon.
So what you can do is, with Origen right now, is they can have their 2 members rotate up, take the dragon alongside the jungler, send your top laner back up to his original lane, and then you just go back into standard lanes so that you don't, because by investing resources into the dragon, you do lose a bit of tempo, but it does look like, due to the damage that Peke sustained, and due to the fact that Origen were perhaps a little bit slower at taking that first turret, decided not to commit to this, and now Schalke, if they wanted to, could make that exact play.
We'll find out if they do, but yeah, you know, you look at Peke going that low, Summoner Spell, it's not going to be very impactful, but it again highlights the complexities of the role and the limited experience when it matters, you know, when it matters under the stage lights. Taking a look at the bottom lane, Sprattel and MrRallez. Try to jump in here on Soaz. The Soul Flare comes down, exhaust into Boomerang, down to 400 hit points. Soaz holds onto his flash. He's able to just leap over to the cannon minion. Got himself some CS in a level.
So that was risky from Soaz. Decided to overstay in the lane to try and pick up as much farm as he could. Fortunately, he didn't have to burn any of his summoner spells, and now, thanks to picking up that extra bit of CS and experience, he's now going to rotate back up with his duo lane. He may even decide to use that teleport and just stick up there to get as much extra farm and experience as he can. So yeah, there's the teleport coming out from Soaz, and then he's likely just going to allow the lane to bounce back and slowly start to have the wave push.
Could be important for Origen. PowerOfEvil's going to sidestep out of that little route that Fox wants to get down. Fox has already TP'd back to lane, by the way. Got himself that second Zoran's ring. Got himself some additional potions. And Amazing will just swing around here. Just try to soak up some of this experience, I feel.
Oh, he could actually go for a play on the Sprattel if he wants to. There's no mana. There is a very small minion wave. It would be a little bit risky from Amazing, but in fact he's just going to use it as an opportunity to pick up some free experience. So, bit of a cheeky play coming out from Amazing, but he will get level 5 off the back of it. And both teams, they're just going to trade tier 1 turrets.
Alright, so where does this put us in the bigger picture? Origen slightly ahead in the tempo, although it's more relevant for Peke and Sprattel, Peke and Hybrid, as they're already halfway to lane, where Sprattel and MrRallez have to recall, so you get some time. Looking at the CS differences, Small advantage for Soaz, and Fox is +10, but I think you expect that in the matchup, you know? Viktor really needs a couple of levels.
You typically would. It's one of the advantages of having teleport in the mid lane. What you can do is you can just burn all of your summoner spells. You can burn all of your mana to just harass down your opponent and just be as irritating as possible. And then once you've used up all your mana and picked up a bit of gold, you can just go back to base, use the teleport, because you're unlikely to set up a teleport play between the levels 1 and 1.
Especially in a lane swap.
Yeah.
When you really have to punish somebody's mistakes for those decisions and calls to come into play. These teams are even. You know, 2 towers apiece, 6 minutes in. No big plays have happened yet. But I think it's important to note that Soaz has got small, you know, a couple CS here, a couple experience there, which could become important once Soaz and Steve go head-to-head.
So I've just had, like, a thought hit me in the face.
Right.
And that is Trinity Force, right? Trinity Force on this patch did get a buff. The attack speed, the removal of crit, actually suits Jax very, very nicely. And that's something I think a lot of teams have let slip under the radar. One of the reasons why Soaz has decided to potentially pick it up. The core build of Jax used to be Trinity Force into Blade of the Ruin King, or Blade of the Ruin King into Trinity Force. So perhaps he could be looking to go back to that sort of play. And if you do, that actually makes the matchup into Fizz a lot better for you, because you have the Sheen to trade evenly with the likelihood of Sheen coming out from Steve. And if you go for Blade of the Ruin King, it makes your tower taking potential a lot better, combined with the additional attack speed on Trinity right now.
Well, Vedius, I can see a ruby crystal in Soaz's back pocket, sitting on 700 gold. So maybe Phage is the first item. If that is the case, then obviously that's a pretty big indicator of which direction he'll be going.
Yeah.
But we'll have to find out. The moment I hear what the pause is about, guys, I will let you know. Obviously, we can see the tech guys joining Schalke on stage. Taking a look down some of the rest of the itemization. Caulfield's hammer for both Ralls and Peke, plus a Doran's blade, plus boots, so no real surprises there. There's no surprises really anywhere. I mean, a Dark Seal for Steve on Fizz. Also, that's becoming de facto and standard on these AP top laners.
This start has been about as standard as you can get with regards to lane swaps. The only surprising factor is the low priority on the Infernal Dragon, because both teams could have picked this one up completely for free. They had that option available. They would have just had to revert back to standard lanes, which, in my opinion, either team could have gotten away with. But they've decided that they would much rather just funnel as much farm onto their solo laners as possible, which has resulted in neither team actually picking that first objective. So now at the 6-minute mark, the first dragon is still available and could potentially be the first point of contention.
Infernal as well. I can't wait to see that happen. Just to give you guys an update, the reason for the pause, Schalke did initiate this. Gilius actually has reported a bug to the officials. It was related to the Gromp rather. He was obviously on an invade and trying to steal the guys are busy discussing through these options right now. I believe we may play through this one. But once I get that confirmed, I will let you know. So yes, the league officials are busy chatting to the players. Yeah, confirming that we will be playing through this. It is not significantly in game impacting. We saw the referees talking to Gilius, and we should be jumping back into game in just a moment. So, Infernal Drake is where we were at. We've discussed the potential. There we go. Obviously, the Gromp did not die. It did reset, regenerated, and Gilius will just lose some time and some farming tempo on this one.
So, we now return to the normality that is the Rift right now. As we approach the 6.5-minute mark, neither team likely looking to fight yet until, funnily enough, we see some of those core items getting completed. The Black Cleaver likely to come out from Peke. Essence Reaver likely to be the priority for MrRallez. And just really want to keep my eye on Soaz, who 26 farm to 10 right now is actually doing quite well.
But there is a massive wave being pushed into Steve. Steve will be able to grab probably 8 to 10 CS, I think. There we go. You know, a little bit of pressure under the tower, but still it's going to end up being an advantage here for Soaz.
He's actually done a great job of managing the side waves. And this comes back to that ever so slight aggressive play that he made down in the bottom lane. Have a look at this. OG deciding to go for the Infernal Drake, but Schalke, they want to try and contest.
Teleport is not available for Soaz. Steve has his up. Infernal Drake will do a lot of damage to Hybrid, and this will force Origen to back away. No summoner spells used. but forcing the hands of Schalke. And actually, positional advantage now. Origen, they've opened up for some chip damage on this middle tower.
Soaz, he may have gone for a flank, decided not to commit to it, as OG, realizing where Schalke are right now, just decided to get a bit of extra damage down from the mid lane turret. And if you just have a look at the two side lanes, you can actually see that both have passed the river. So OG, they don't want to commit to overextending. So they're just going to do what they can in the middle lane, get a bit of extra damage down, and then likely go and collect the waves that will be pushing towards them up in the top and in the bottom.
All right, 8 minutes. Even Stevens. Dragon still standing. Teleport will come up for Soaz in 50 seconds. So that's going to give some opportunities, but it is Schalke that have positioned themselves. Looking at the mini-map, Farm Alarm was used, Teleport's not available. This could be the first Dragon of the game uncontested, unless a miracle Winter's Bite happens.
It does look like Schalke, they identified what Amazing had done. They're going to be fine giving that away, but he actually failed the smite. He actually got that with the basic attack. So.
I saw the 11 hit points
I
on
saw it
Dragon.
too, yeah. So, great smite by Gilius. Clearly that was all calculated.
/S. But it doesn't hurt Schalke. I think that's what's crucial, right?
But have a look at this now. Potential collapse coming out from Schalke in the mid.
The Claw of Doom is not going to be enough. And PowerOfEvil is able to just flash away. Actually, very early respect flash. So gank ends up being successful regardless of the fact it's not a kill.
I think that was smart from PowerOfEvil. He identified a little bit too late that the collapse was coming out from Schalke, so rather than risk it, he just wanted to bail out of that one as quickly as he could, and I think it was the smart choice. So no kills going to be going down, just the Infernal Drake going in favor of Schalke. Amazing was able to steal away the red buff and steal away the top half of the jungle, but other than that, no real big changes.
Red buff is secured there by Amazing, despite the threat from Sprattel.
That was blind.
It was, indeed. Well spotted. A little bit of pot luck, maybe. Regardless.
Intuition.
Intuition. Okay, touche. Much better word, actually. Steve will grab level 6 access to Chum the Waters as he walks back into lane. Still down CS. What's that, 14 or so?
That's
and
a
a
big
wave
yeah.
is pushing to Soaz. So this, you know, that early game, we mentioned it earlier, the small advantages that Soaz had earned and accrued has now paid off because he's going to have potentially a fairly large CS advantage.
And remember that Schalke was the team to initiate this lane swap, and we were discussing a lot during the Champion Select how Origen's success have largely come from Soaz doing well, and so far in the early game, he's sitting on a lead, he's working towards that Trinity Force, and if things keep going this way for Origen, where they just play out the laning phase as safely as possible, he could very well become this split-pushing monster that Schalke have no answer for.
And this is something that yourself and Deficio and the analyst desk had talked about, you know, not going for a snowball comp, not going for a win lane, win game style, a little bit more scaling, a little bit more relying on the experience of the players, the understanding of the mid to late game. And Steve will run into some trouble, gets knocked up here by Amazing. Support from Gilius is waiting in the wings, but Steve not going to need it. Playful Tricksters over the wall, and we turn our attention to the middle lane. All of a sudden, PowerOfEvil's the man that's in trouble. He's got no flash, remember. Gonna get locked down. That was such an early cleanse. PowerOfEvil gets sent backwards. First blood to Gilius.
Great collapse coming out from Schalke. They knew that that summoner spell was unavailable for PowerOfEvil, and they just wanted to abuse him as much as they could. But Peke, he's going aggressive.
Piercing Light comes out, follows it up with the culling. The support from Amazing in the river. Remember, Soaz has a teleport. Amazing gets rooted in place by the Ring of Frost, and there is a ward in the lane for Soaz, but no vision in the jungle to hop over. So first blood to Schalke.
Good first blood, and it was just a great setup, really. The collapse from three sides down onto PowerOfEvil, chaining their CC together to guarantee that kill and making sure that cleanse would get him away. Fox now, the target focus.
He teleports it in just to instantly flash away. Peke may get rooted down, is able to dash and flash away. Saves his life, Amazing. Now under some trouble, we catch a glimpse of Hybrid, he gets deaded. Steve was able to TP in and just use that ulti to set one up.
So Schalke right now, they're just capitalizing on the mispositioning of OG, using both the teleports to get themselves another kill down into the mid lane, as well as deny a lot of farm away from Peke. But have a look at what Soaz is doing up in the top.
Yeah, plus 40 CS, shoving that wave in, and honestly, waving his arms in the air, screaming, guys, team, guys.
I thought you were going to go with, I just don't care.
Yeah.
That's I thought that was the direction.
It was the bait and switch. Bait and switch. But yeah, Soaz has farmed himself up. A level advantage, a significant CS advantage, 1,600 gold to spend. But the problem is the rest of his team is struggling ever so slightly.
But it's okay, because they're only 2 kills down. They still are even in terms of the gold. And you do have a Viktor and a LUcian that really thrive during the mid-game. You can see the PowerOfEvil about to complete his Abyssal Scepter. Fox has decided to go for Rod of Ages. Now, this is something that I am very passionately against on LIssandra, because you don't need mana. You also, realistically, I mean, health is valuable, but you gain a lot more from the added cooldown reduction as well as the resistances from going Abyssal Zhonya's, because that gives you enough tankiness combined with your crowd control to stay alive long enough in a fight where I would argue it's more effective health than a Rod of Ages ramping up can actually provide. And the ability power that it gives, I just don't think it's the best trade-off. Personally, it's a very big pet peeve of going Rod of Ages on LIssandra, because it just delays your effectiveness and your ability to just sit in these team fights and throw out all your CC.
And if that ends up being true, that's a good sign for Origen. However, Fox is still 1-0-1. He's plus 20 CS over his opposite number. It's still going to be a tough challenge to overcome. And you consider all of the CC, all of the tools that can back up that LIssandra.
That Jax is really starting to look terrifying. 89 to 53 farm. Already completed the Sheen now as well. Steve is going to struggle. He does have the Ignite, so he has that extra bit of damage available, but deciding to go for a very early Balmy Cinder as opposed to the actual Sheen could be his detriment as Peke. No mana, no flash, could be in some trouble.
They're hunting the Peke, and I think he's going to get caught out. Tomb in place, boomerang! Yeah, I didn't need to get that excited. That was real easy on the side of Schalke. Punishing Peke for being way overextended. I mean, he was nearly at the river. But what it does open is Glimpse of the Void. Yet another Rift Herald for Origen. I'm going to have to look at this, and maybe we can ask our stats spinner to look into it for PGL, but Origen seemed to look at the Rift Herald a little more than most teams.
Well, it's because they rely on Soaz to be that big split push threat, and it is a great buff for split pushes, having that reduced damage as well as additional damage stacking over time. It will enable you to take down those turrets a little bit quicker, as we actually see a teleport from Soaz in the bottom lane.
And he's got a Triforce as well. Fox is the target. He's got no ultimate available. Soaz leaps forward. Fox runs into Hybrid. No flash available. A good Ring of Frost. The barrel knocks Soaz forward. The leap was very, very good. That's 1 kill somewhere else on the map as Fox goes down as well. Counter-Strike is available. Flash, stun, the Braum Winter's Bite. Double kill for Jax.
And you can hear the crowd getting excited as Origen equalized the kill score 3-3. Soaz picking himself up a double kill after a great teleport down in the bottom lane. And really, we have to give credit to Peke for setting up that bait down in the bottom lane. He ends up getting caught out of position. Think of all the resources that he bought out of Fox. Not only did Origen get themselves the Rift Herald, but they're able to get themselves 3 kills in total. They get themselves the Man and Drink, and they may be able to get themselves a tier 1 turret in the mid.
What a big swing, and what a terrifying proposition. Soaz already has an advantage, and he's got the Triforce. This was a kill that actually confused me, because it was happening elsewhere on the map. Wow.
Oh.
Sprattel just got dunked.
Respect the ultimate, ladies and gentlemen, because it hurts like a female dog. Is Gilius going to take a lot of damage as getting caught out, and you're actually giving a red buff over to Gilius, over to Soaz, sorry. And that's just going to make him even more terrifying up in the side lane. So that is something that Schalke really need to be mindful of.
Yeah, and how on earth are they going to contain him? Steve may not be able to stay into the tower, and if Soaz continues to farm up and become even more of a threat, Fox may not even be able to contain him. I have seen Jax's dive all manner of champions in the past, especially when you consider there's going to be a delayed hourglass as well. So questions that Schalke will have to figure out an answer for in the coming minutes.
It's like, so I was actually picking up a bit of magic resistance, and that actually makes a lot of sense when you look at all of the AP that's stacked up for Schalke right now. The only real AD coming out from MrRallez, who is going to take a little while to scale up, has now completed that Essence Reaver. But with Peke working towards that Black Cleaver as, Hybrid and Peke.
Well, Hybrid and Peke, they're going to look for Gilius. Gilius forced to flash away. At the same time, Soaz and Amazing, they were putting some pressure on Steve in the top lane. And you mentioned Peke, he's actually doing very well. Plus 20 CS. Yes, he's given up a death from overextending, but in comparison to game 1 of the series, he's already in a much better position to make an impact throughout the course of this mid-game.
He certainly is. By that we mean he hasn't died 5 times.
Yep.
Which is always a great way to play AD carry. But yeah, he is playing this LUcian. Come towards the 20-minute mark, he's going to be having a pretty significant impact. And as long as he can rely on the mechanics that I'm confident he does possess, Origen are in a good position right now. Sitting on the gold lead, ever so slight, but it's still there. And really for them, it's more about setting Soaz up for success, which throughout this early game, they have done a great job of.
Yeah, throughout the entirety of the lane swap as well. Coming out ahead of Schalke, who actually started it. I see 2 deep wards in the top quadrant. The red buff area of Schalke's jungle, so there is some vision for Soaz to play with, but I don't feel it's the greatest if he wants to keep split pushing down in the bottom lane. There's some deep vision that is in behind Peke if he decides to stick around. I mean, maybe a teleport's not even needed, because like, Peke, what on earth are you doing that far up? Ghostblade is up, dashes away, gets slowed down, flash forward, flash from Fox. All right, Peke gives up his life. Nothing else can be taken, but he gets 2 flashes out of the deal.
That is why the river is known as the danger zone, because you cannot push up that far without adequate vision. And given that there are no turrets there anymore, it's very difficult to actually get vision deep enough that will allow you to be that aggressive in the bottom half of the map. Peke should have just sacrificed that farm. He shouldn't have been in a position to give away that free kill. And now look at the deep vision that Schalke have been able to get themselves.
Yeah, I heard a very good line earlier in the day. You haven't seen people for like 15 or 20 seconds, assume they are there. And unfortunately, Peke forgot to follow that tenant and gives up his second death of the game. In exactly the same like scenario.
That's the second time he's done it now, which is... You'd think that fool me once, shame on me, fool me twice, shame on you, I believe is the expression. Unfortunately for Peke, still needs a bit more shaming before he's learned.
Ding, ding, ding. Origen, however, in a much better position. We're 20 minutes into the game. They've got themselves a Mountain Drake. The next one will be Ocean spawning in just under me.
We always get 3 different ones, don't we?
Oh, good. Variety is the spice of life, Betty.
I do like a bit of variety.
We have to find out who's going to actually challenge for it, because there is a lot of AoE on both sides here, actually, and whoever can set up vision can really dictate the outcome of the team fights. Especially true when you consider Fox now has a nearly fully stacked Roa and an Hourglass. So that could be crucial come the next couple of engages.
Yeah, he is going to be pretty strong. He has been allowed to stack up that Rod of Ages, so it will provide a lot of value. It does give you that tankiness, just not for resistances. Instead, it gives you those in terms of health. Soaz does seem to be the target focus.
I'm a little bit more comfortable with Soaz doing this push, but in a 2v1, he's still going to be in trouble. Very good counter-strike. He might turn this one around. Gilius is going low, down to 300, leap forward. Burn's not going to be enough, and Gilius gets away with his life, but that almost was a 2-for-1.
That was so close, and that just demonstrates the power of this Rift Herald buff. If you are allowed to just sit in the side lane and put all this pressure down, but look at OG, they want to go for the mid.
Sprattel's looking for the root, will find it onto Peke. He's going to get the empowered Q. Peke is rooted and sent packing with a tomb. Another kill.
Great route coming out from Sprattel, just within the range to keep Peke locked up. You then had the damage coming out from Fox to facilitate that kill, and it was just OG not quite being able to capitalize on all the pressure that Soaz was drawing in the bottom lane.
Soaz has got a teleport available and some wards behind Schalke if he decides to pull the trigger, but will not this time around, and that means Schalke get their 3rd tower of the game, take a marginal gold lead, and swing around just in time for the Ocean break.
Very unfortunate for Origen. The strategy was good. It would have been so great for them if they could have not only gotten the kill onto Soaz in the bottom lane, who drew 3 members towards him, but also if they could have gotten that mid tier 1 turret. It would have opened up the map so much more for them. Would have equalized the turrets. But unfortunately, the execution was just a little bit off.
Origen not really making the best use of those side lanes or their vision. I think Soaz, if the rest of his team had been playing around that mid-up turret or another objective or deep vision maybe, I could argue that they could set something up. Unfortunately, it wasn't the case. Just looking through some of these items. Soaz actually gets jumped on, but that is because Fox is joining. Soaz gets locked down, comes out, leaps away, still has flash available, opts to flash. The rest of Origen are still scattered, leap to a ward. Soaz continues to take Schalke on the great chase. Steve and Fox, they're not done yet. Another leap from Soaz. Urchin strike rather from Steve. And Soaz is able to get away, but he burns his flash. And this allows Origen some deep vision. Hey, I don't think there's a better player at escaping ganks than Soaz.
But the question is, what can OG get off the back of this? Because if Soaz is going to be drawing all this pressure, OG need to be ready to capitalize. That was another 2 members of Schalke that were being invested into the bottom half of the map. You have PowerOfEvil, who's completed 2 big items. That's a 3rd mark on the Hex core. That is an Abyssal Scepter as well. Peke, a little bit off his Black Cleaver, but still in a really powerful spot. And OG had a great opportunity to force the fight with the 4 members onto the 3, but they just did not take it. They're not properly utilizing all of this pressure that Soaz is drawing.
And it just means the game is still even. Now, I think some credit here to Origen, because even though they're down 3 kills, even though they're down a tower, they're still this close in gold. I mean, it's mostly in Soaz's back pocket.
Yeah.
Because he's doing so well. He's, you know, 1,300 gold higher than Steve right now. And he's a very big threat to the entire Schalke squad.
And to be fair to Becky, he's actually even with MrRallez on gold. So,
the CS advantage helps.
Yeah, this is it. He is one of the kings of farming. So he definitely can keep that relatively even though he is sitting on 3 deaths, which is actually quite surprising. But to be fair to Origen, they are investing a lot of resources. It just comes back to that inspirational quote, except in this instance, they're actually making sure that Peke receives as much of the farm, while Soaz is the one pushing.
Soaz right now, teleport is still up, no flash, down in the bottom lane. Not a lot of vision for Soaz to work with, so if Schalke wanted to try catch him out, they could. Schalke, they're opting into a little bit of the Baron player. Last week, actually, Schalke made such a big mistake, losing a Baron because they simply didn't ward the pit properly. It doesn't seem to be a mistake this time around. Fox, Glacial Path comes out, gets the flash instantly. Respect flashes here from Origen all game long.
You had to, because he would have been one shot if he didn't respect it. There's just too much damage on Fox right now. Level 14 LIssandra, who's got both the Rod of Ages and the Zhonya's completed, is amazing. Trying to get a bit of damage down onto Gilius, fighting over these wards around the Baron.
This is a 4v4, and in the bottom lane, Soaz is pushing Steve under the tower. I think Soaz still has a few minutes left on that glimpse of the void. Unless I'm horribly mistaken. Yeah, there we go, can still see it.
They picked it up at about the 14-minute mark, so should last until about 35 minutes. It depends on whether or not Soaz has gone for that mastery point, which enables him to last an extra 3 minutes. But given that he's playing Jax, does seem a little bit unlikely.
Yeah, seems to be the case. And of course, for Soaz, this is good if you can contain Steve. Already been able to back away. 1,500 gold in the bank. Looks like might be leaning towards that Blair the Ruin King. Second item. Old school Jax build.
Old school. But he's got a good, healthy amount of magic resistance in there as well. And that's part of the reason as to why he was able to tank up Fox and Steve for such a long time. He stacked that up with his ultimate, which gives him such powerful resistances. Really does make him that really scary split push. And this is the thing for Origen, that they will always have that win condition in their back pocket. Just let Soaz end the game. If all 5 members of Schalke commit to a fight in Origen, can just get away with maybe losing 1 or even 2 members, by that time, Soaz may well have already cracked into the base of Schalke.
Origen have just bought themselves some additional time. They sneak away the mid tower. Minions not even needed. Just face tanked by Amazing. Quicksilver Sash picked up by Peke, so against the hard CC that can come down from Schalke, I quite like that. Teleport is available for Soaz. I don't think Schalke are going to do this Baron particularly quickly. You can see how much damage Gilius is taking, but there's a TP coming down from Steve. Where is the answer for Soaz? He's not channeled it just yet. PowerOfEvil's in trouble. There goes the Glacial Fissure. PowerOfEvil knocked backwards. Gilius with a very good ultimate. Peke has got himself a kill. The QSS buys time. I don't know if Fox knew he had it. Steve is now caught in the tower, tanking it up. Glacial Path comes out, that's interrupted. Steve has arrived, he's swinging the hockey stick, he's got the double kill, and Origen have got 4.
Origen get themselves 4 kills, and they may very well be able to get themselves the Baron. Unbelievable execution from Origen. This is exactly what they needed. Soaz didn't even join the fight until heavily later on, and what a great play coming out from Origen.
And when he did, there's a Blade of the Rune King in his back pocket. The instant QSS from Peke. That's it, Origen have blown this game wide open.
And this is absolutely massive for them. So have a look at how this whole play ends up coming to be. As Schalke, they tried to use their double teleport, but they can't quite pick a target to focus. They decide to go for PowerOfEvil, but Hybrid, being that fantastic disengaged support, prevents the follow-up and buys enough time for PowerOfEvil to get the damage down, and once his damage is down, that's done. The rest of Origen can just focus on cleaning up the fight, and who's better than cleaning up than Soaz coming in from the backside with his completed Blade of the Ruined King, and with that Jack that just loves to stick to your face. So great play overall from Origen, and they just got so much off the back of that.
4,000 gold lead, even out the kills, take the Baron buff, and with this Dragon, they'll even out the Dragon's taken as well.
Just before Elder as well, so there'll be a 5th Drake available.
We have to see which one's going to be the repeat format. But for Origen, actually no, better yet, for Schalke, good luck dealing with Jax.
Oh yeah, I mean...
There are very few things in this game that can contain a Jax that's plus 60 CS with Triforce, Blade of the Ruined King, and a heap of MR.
The only thing I could think of that would deal with a Jax at this point is a full item build Malphite. That's probably the only thing I can think of that will hold his own against Jax.
That means nothing that Schalke have in their inventory.
Basically. Look at the damage that Peke's putting down now.
Yeah, a lot of damage clearing out that wave. Steve gets forced backwards. And Schalke now have got to deal with another minute 50 worth of Baron buff. And Origen got very good deep vision here.
Just bear in mind that Soaz still has his Glimpse of the Void buff up, at least for another 5 minutes. So that's just going to make his split push presence even more terrifying. It does look like they've decided to go for a 4-1 with Soaz in the mid lane right now, and Fox, without any teleport, is forced to wave clear duty up in the top.
Yeah, let's see how hard Origen can push. They know they've got time to play with. They know they're going to have an empowered wave. Amazing takes a lot of damage, actually. Pretty good from Gilius and MrRallez, relatively low risk. Teleports, recall coming in from Fox. He's managed to deal with that very large wave. Backed away, picked up a blasting wand, finished off his Abyssal Scepter not too long ago. And here's those dives that we start seeing from Soaz. 50% of Gilius' HP just like that.
And he's supposed to be the front line. Look at Soaz just committing for the turret. On the hunt gets popped.
Damage onto Soaz.
Just going to vamp it back up, though.
Yeah, potential flank from Origen. They've split up with very good vision in this right-hand quadrant. Steve pulls that one short. The Shark does not find its target, nor does the Culling, to be fair. But Schalke, they've defended for the time being.
They're just showing off their abilities, being like, hey, I want to see my pet shark. And Peke is like, hey, do you want to see my light show? So both just showing off a little bit as what does appear to be Soaz returning to his home up in the top lane, putting a bit of pressure down, drawing Fox, and to be honest, I think Fox needs to be very mindful. Notice that Sprattel is there to provide a bit of additional support, but Schalke are being spread thin right now.
Yeah, they are indeed. At 31 minutes in, Origen are now sieging multiple lanes. Baron will be wearing off, has worn off. And it's Schalke that, you know, got undone. They initiated the fight, you know? If you go back to that Baron play 4 or 5 minutes ago, the teleport came down from Steve. They were looking to find a kill and unfortunately couldn't make it happen.
They just weren't quick enough on the mark. The teleport, the principle behind the play was smart. They knew what they were trying to do, and if they could have gotten that pick down onto PowerOfEvil or even Peke, who didn't have his flash available at the time, Schalke would have been the ones with the Baron. Schalke would have been the ones knocking on the doors of OG. But because they couldn't quite get the target that they wanted, and because of some great hybrid disengage, what was effectively a 4v5 for the majority of that fight, OG get themselves the teamfight win, get themselves the Baron. And now, with that Baron gone, Schalke pushing themselves back up into the lane a little bit more, posturing around the dragon area, which isn't going to be spawning for another 2.5 minutes. But still, Schalke feeling a little bit more confident now with that big buff down.
And it's also important to track the itemization changes. Both Infinity Edges completed for Ralls as well as Peke. Guardian Angel picked up for Soaz. Banshee's Veil for Steve. So a lot more survivability, a lot more damage from the respective roles.
Surprised that Steve has decided to go for Banshee's Veil over the Spirit's Visage. But it does make some sense, mitigate some of the damage coming out from Soaz. Not that much, but it will help. Actually, the only magic resistance item coming into patch 6.9 that wasn't nerfed. So still provides that valuable magic resistance. Also pretty good against the Viktor damage, and if Braum tries to land any of those concussive blows, but obviously it will only block one of these things. Yeah. So still has to be mindful of all this single target crowd control that's available.
Got a quick glimpse there of Soaz running up to meet Fox. Glimpse of the Void will time out shortly. GA was also picked up by Amazing. So the next time these fights happen, not only does Origen have all of this additional room for error in terms of their, gold lead, in terms of their incredibly fair jacks, but they've also got 2 extra lives. So the challenge for Schalke has become even more difficult. I took a quick look at the Dragon Pit. I believe the next one is Infernal. So Infernal in 50 seconds.
It's going to be a big dragon.
Baron in a minute. You have to feel that Baron's going to be more important at this point.
That is true, yes. You don't want to commit too many resources into that Infernal Drake, but if OG could pick that one up, that's an additional 8% AD and AD, which at this stage in the game would be exceptionally valuable on your jacks, as well as the Viktor. So you want to pick it up if you can, but obviously you don't want to put it at the risk of losing power.
Still a lot of damage going down into Amazing. Ral's got off 4 or so auto attacks. The only problem is he needs to do all of those auto attacks and avoid Viktor and avoid Soaz's jacks, and he's not going to get the chance. Amazing flashes forward. MrRallez flashes and runs for his life. Glacial Fissure sends Ralls flying once more. Look at Soaz. He's jumped onto Fox. The root comes down. Soaz still has a Guardian Angel. 1,400 hit points. Gonna leap forward. Continue to look for Fox. Fox is down. Ralls is running for his life. Throws out a boomerang. Double kill for Soaz. He lived. He ducks. He stays alive. GA not even popped. And Schalke lose 2.
That just demonstrates the tankiness and power that this late game Jax has. Level 17, GA doesn't even get used. Origen, they knew that the Baron was going to be spawning in a minute. They tried to force the play. They're able to make it work, and they should be able to pick themselves up a big advantage.
Even more important, Soaz didn't even use the teleport. He was able to run into lane. No TP for either Steve or Fox. Baron is available 20-second cooldowns on those death timers.
I'm surprised that they're not putting more priority on picking up this Baron. They're actually going to 2-man it with Amazing and Soaz, and they're going to look to try and take this tier 2 turret up in the top lane.
Easy pickup. Infernal Drake not contested either. Origen, they are just running away with this game.
Have to be mindful though, the initial setup of that fight could have gone horribly wrong for Origen. They were playing into double teleport, and they invested a lot of flashes, which didn't result in any net gain. So, great initiation here from Amazing, getting the double knockup, and if Soaz was able to land the stun, this would have been great. They would have instantly won the fight, but a great spell shield from MrRallez buys time, and this is where the things start to turn in Origen's favor, because the exhaust down to Fox mitigates so much of the damage down to Soaz. Combined with his ultimate and all the tanky stats he has, he's just sitting on the front line, soaking up all this damage while dealing a ton himself, and Peke and PowerOfEvil aren't even touched, which is exactly the way Origen want to play these team fights. Focus Soaz, make him your priority, and allow PowerOfEvil and Peke a free time in these engagements.
Infernal Drake picked up after the Baron, after the inner top turret, after the kills. And exactly as you mentioned, Vedius, when Origen play around Soaz, when Amazing is able to work with him, that is when this team is looking good. This week, at least. And it's worked out. And, I sound a bit like a broken record, but, you're all the way back to the early game, and those advantages that Soaz earned from the lane swap. Gilius throws out the explosive cast, does not do a whole lot to thwart the siege. Steve's got a GA picked up, so at least one extra life on the side of Schalke, but I just don't think it's going to be enough. The inhibitor's under siege until that Baron-empowered minion is killed, and now OG pushing forward. They're on the inhibitor bottom lane. Soaz shoving up the wave mid lane.
It does look like that Origen want to keep up this pressure. They're going to return to the strategy that's worked out for them pretty much this entire game. Soaz in another lane, just applying pressure. He does have his teleport, but given how close the teams are to one another, I can't see him really using it as Schalke, they're really struggling to figure out what to do right now.
Now there's not a lot that Schalke can do. They're down 13,000 gold. The inhibitor is being focused. Ghostblade comes up. Look at the damage on the Fox. He gets chunked to 20% hit points. That will secure the inhibitor. So many shots landing. Gilius under threat of being tagged up by those concussive blows, and Soaz and Steve, they've been doing battle in the middle lane. But Origen, they get their objective within 2 minutes of Baron. Supers are now spawning, and they can set up a siege in another lane.
So the big thing for Origen is teams worked so hard to shut down PeKe and Hybrid. In game 1, it worked for Vitality. In game 1, it worked for Schalke. But then, Origen changed up their playstyle and they said, you know what, all we need is our bottom lane to do okay. Doesn't matter if they fall a bit behind, the priority is that Soaz and PowerOfEvil get through a successful laning phase. And when they played against Vitality in game 1, it didn't happen. But game 2, they enabled it, Soaz got ahead, and Origen became a different team. And now we're seeing it once more with the Jax. Origen put so much focus and so much reliance on Soaz, and he does such a great job of controlling this pressure.
He's done a great job of controlling really everything. Soaz has been overextended once, and I think you can even debate how impactful, if at all, that call was. But from the moment resources were invested, Soaz has just run away with this game, and the threat alone has been monstrous. I like seeing PowerOfEvil in a better pick as well. You know, we've not really talked a whole lot about PowerOfEvil because he's been a support cast member, a role player, if you will.
But that's what you want to be as a mid laner right now.
And look at the CS difference, like he's impactful.
Yeah, it's just, as long as you're doing your job as a Viktor, that's all the team needs right now, because the team isn't built around mid lane right now. It's very much built around these side lanes. You need your AD carry to do well, and you need your top laner, where it comes back to this running theme of this week, which is the shift in the meta. The top lane is more about bruises. And personally, I feel that this is great for Origen, because now Soaz can be that shining star that he's been known as for such an incredibly long time.
Yeah, just needs to do it every single game.
Yeah,
That's not quite that simple. Not quite that simple. Soaz is able to take down the inhibitor turret in the middle lane. The rest of Origen, they're sieging up the top tower. They don't even need Baron. Supers are now in the front line. Soaz gets caught out by the engage from Gilius. 5 members of Schalke running forward, and Soaz is able to flash and leap away. Right, the only towers remaining are in front of the Nexus. And I don't think that's going to matter for much longer. Soaz rooted in place. The tomb comes down as well. 2 members of Origen in the middle of the base. Soaz is still alive. A flash forward from Fox. This feels personal. Gravity field from PowerOfEvil. Steve and Fox, they're trying to take Soaz down. The Guardian Angel was popped. The kill was secured. The rest of Schalke's base is falling apart though. PowerOfEvil is able to flash away to safety. Still holds on to that cleanse. And all of a sudden the 3rd inhibitor falls. Schalke, they get the consolation prize of killing Soaz at the cost of their entire base.
But think of what it took to actually bring down Soaz and what it cost Schalke. Sure, you were able to finally kill that juggernaut up in the top lane after his 6-1 scoreline, now being shifted to 6-2. Yeah, you heard his KDA, but you lost your entire base off the back of it, and I don't think Origen are going to be too upset about that.
Not at all. You saw how effectively they opened the base. That was, you know, the better part of what, a 5-minute siege? Even after Baron wore off. The pressure was just not alleviated. Origen, if they want to play this safe, they can go for either Elder or Baron and then close the game. Or alternatively, they can just use the super minions. It's entirely up to them.
The best way to close this game out for Origen now is just rely on the minions. Get yourself the Baron, put up some deep vision in the enemy jungle. Schalke can't leave their base because there are too many super minions knocking on the door, and they just, it's just perfect setup for OG. For them to lose this game now would be a miracle.
And it's so problematic for Schalke. They actually can't even leave their base to contest.
Exactly.
Because if any lane pushes in, Soaz with this Trinity Force, Blade of the Ruined King is just going to easily be able to kill those Nexus turrets. 1.25 hit bars between them.
Schalke are very low on options right now. The goal difference probably not as meaningful as it would be at this point in the game, but looks like OG are actually going to prioritize the Dragon so that they can use this.
Because they can kill it before Baron spawns.
Yes, that's one. And it's for exactly the same reasons we were just talking about. The fact that Schalke, they can't leave their base. This is just going to help Origen take the Baron even quicker. And who's going to even dare consider trading against Soaz now?
Absolutely nobody. I must admit, I do have a small pet peeve with Origen making this a 1-to-1 drawn series. We would have had a day of perfect 2-0s.
We would have.
We would have. Origen going to thwart that one. Right, Gilius has decided to back away. Soaz might want to pick up a kill here. Flash over the wall from Gilius. Not going to be possible because he's running for his life. Baron has been stopped, has been interrupted. Double teleports from Steve and from Fox. Schalke, they're trying to find some kills. Peck is in trouble. QSS has been used, but they need to get through Soaz. Look at the base, and inhibitors respawn. Soaz teleported to the top lane. There is a possibility here if Fox can get away. Gonna self-cast the tomb. Hourglass is still available. Here comes MrRallez. Soaz is in trouble. He's gonna get chunked down. He's gonna get killed. Oh my word! Have Schalke done this? They've got 60 seconds of a
Look at the base!
But look at the base! The Winions! They might finish this one. 1, 2, 3, 4 super minions!
No, are they actually gonna do this?
All that Schalke need to do is get back to the base. I don't know if they can.
Oh.
Gilius is trying to defend. Hybrid as well as amazing. They're doing what they can. Look at Gilius cleaning out the waves. Schalke have lost their base, but they bought some time.
They should be able to defend this, but what could have been the game for Schalke? Thanks to the Winions, OG have been able to buy some time. Peke getting caught out at the worst possible time by the double teleport of Schalke, but the big thing is Schalke no longer have that play available.
They don't, but I think you have to put more of the blame on Soaz and Amazing. Soaz teleports to the top lane to try face Gilius. Amazing leaves the pit, and Peck is like, guys, and he gets jumped on from behind.
Very unfortunate. And then the fact that you lose Peke and you still try to force the fight, I guess OG felt like, oh, well, with our AD carry gone and one of our big wave clearers gone, how can we really defend against the push from Schalke? So let's just try and force the fight. I'm pretty tanky, I'm pretty fed, I can probably stall for a little while, but the big thing is they just didn't have the damage. Fortunately for them, they definitely had the base. All they had to do was buy time for the minions to close out the game, and just have a look at the wards in the enemy base. They are, I wanted to say looking for the TP play, but without the teleport available on Soaz, they're just going to go for the Baron instead.
Also, we got very excited by the play. We're just going to dial it back a bit. Origen still have a 15,000 gold lead. They still have super minions pouring through the bottom lane thanks to them retaking that inhibitor. So there was a moment of excitement, but Origen should still be able to close this one out.
So, Soaz still holding on to that GA. Could have sold it for something else, but it doesn't matter. Right now, OG pushing onto the base of Schalke. There's the Baron, they want to force a fight.
Fox has gone forward, Steve is looking for something, but the inhibitor is being the target of Soaz. The rest of Schalke back away, 50% of the HP is down. And look, the GA cooldowns become available. Fox is in trouble, sends himself golden. I think Peke and PowerOfEvil, they can look for the kill. The tomb goes out, Steve will go down. It's PowerOfEvil that gets the kill. Peke finds one onto Fox. Origen, after a moment of fear and excitement, they focus down Schalke, null fear. They focus down the Nexus, and Origen will at least pick themselves up a point.
Origen get themselves the win in what was a bit of a nail-biter of a game. There were moments where things were not looking good for them. A couple of bad fights, Peke getting caught out a little bit too often, but still they're able to make it work. Soaz on this Jax, getting himself the win. Very impressive performance up in the top lane, and overall, I think that we have identified the style of play that Origen needs in order to come out ahead in these games.
You know, I think it's tough to argue because Peke is having some struggles in the role swap, as is to be expected. You know, there's no real surprises there.
Schalke, though, still did a good job in game one. Very clean game. Very similar to what we saw from Vitality in game one yesterday against Origen. Shutting down the bottom lane, preventing Peke from being able to be involved in these fights whatsoever was a very big thing. As you can see, both teams keen to interact with their fans.
I like that. You know what? It's a split series. It's a draw. They take away a point each, meet in the middle. And obviously, reverse high fives for the fans. Especially because there was a lot of love for both sides. You know, both Schalke as well as Origen got a lot of cheers throughout the games, but so many struggles for Origen to overcome with this role swap, with the fact that Forgiven, obviously off the roster after 1 week in summer, whether or not Pekka sticks around or whether or not they find another ADC is questions we're going to only know in the next few weeks.
The thing that really concerns me about Origen is, yeah, okay, they've got Pekka in as an AD carry, but there still seems to be underlying problems with the team regardless. Even if you bring in a very talented, young, mechanically gifted AD carry, you could then fall back into the issues that they had before, where there seems to be no leadership, there's no control, and PowerOfEvil isn't stepping up as the mid that they need.
And I think if you actually step back and you look at Origen, Summer Split last year, Spring, as a team, these guys have had players that have been overextended in court across so many different metas, across so many different series. And I think it's something that they need to try to rein in, because it can be so game-changing when you have these mistakes or these misplays happen really, really frequently.
It certainly is. And moving forward, hopefully they're able to rectify these issues. The one thing that we do have to say about Pekka in particular is the sense of teamwork seems to have significantly improved in Origen. They are playing much more like a unit compared to what we saw last week. They're a lot more decisive, but really it has very much been the Soaz show.
Now, as we step back, we look at Schalke. We talked a lot about Origen. Despite the fact they lost that game, they won game one very convincingly. They took quite a beating yesterday, which is tough. And they still bounce back, I think, in convincing fashion. Still some questions to be answered from this fairly young roster in terms of their competitive experience, their changes from spring. What's your take on them?
One thing I would say, aside from Schalke, is the Gragas pick seems to have less priority, whether it was in the hands of Amazing or Gilius.
Yeah.
Last week we saw Gilius playing phenomenally on the Gragas, yet this week it seems to be having less of an impact. And I don't know whether or not that's just Schalke or whether or not that's down to Gilius' playstyle, where he needs a jungler that has more impact in the early game, and it seems to be that Gragas can't really give him what he needs.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And I think, you know, yesterday's games for Gilius were maybe a blip, because I think of the 4 days worth of games, only one of them has been really questionable. Today looked a little bit more impactful, looked a little bit more valuable. Unfortunately, it's just like, what are you going to do against a Jax that gets the massive CS advantage, the level advantage? And what do you think of the pick overall, now you've seen the whole game?
It was interesting. I liked it with the Trinity Force in particular. And you can be that split push there. I think you're a little too reliant on the Rift Herald. Perhaps because you are tunneling very heavily onto split pushing, whereas someone like a Fizz has a little bit more flexibility in what he can do. But it definitely has its role, and I think we'll see it a lot more into these Aurelia picks that we're seeing more of these days.
Interesting. More Jax. I'm not opposed to that, especially when teams are able to actually get their Jax into an advantage or into a position, because Soaz came away from the lane swap with just a few extra CS, just a little bit of extra experience. There's few extra seconds in lane. It started that very small snowball that eventually meant that the team that was in control was Origen, and they got Soaz into that powerful position. Do you think that's a weakness of Schalke, not being able to recognize that?
It's tough to say, because overall I felt like Schalke's strategy coming in was, let's shut down Peke. And then once they identified, oh, it's not that easy to shut down Peke, like, oh, wait a minute. Oh, Soaz has been farming all game, and now he's sitting at, what was it, 372 CS? Yeah, okay, we probably shouldn't have focused so much on the bottom.
No, they absolutely should not have. Pyrotechnics is on stage ready to